Okay, so recently I've been reading some royal fantasy, right? And it's all so fucking miserable, man. I fucking hate royal fantasy. And here's some few reasons, right? Okay, so this is more of a personal reason, but I'm not really the biggest fan of royal families or anything like that. Like, remember when Lizzie died? I was like, yes! Fuck her, man. Like, what do they actually do nowadays, man? What use do they have? Anyways, back to royal fantasy stories. Because the majority of the characters in these stories are like nobles and upper class people, they all speak like they've got a fucking broomstick up their ass. Like I literally want to dash my phone out the window when I read the dialogue, man. Just stop talking like that. Please, just speak like a normal person, man. Who do you think you are? Macbeth? With your double toil and trouble. Shut up! These royal fantasy stories are so lazily done, man. Like, except maybe the art, which is also fucking shit half the time. These stories have like no redeeming qualities, man. Everything about them is so fucking boring and shit. It's not even the case of being it's so bad that it's good. They're just so fucking mediocre to the point that you'll forget it literally 2 seconds after you finish reading it. And also, I forgot to mention this before, but like, I'm not talking about stories like Pandora Hearts, which is fucking incredible by the way, go read it. But I'm talking about all this shit here. Like, no, Pandora Hearts is great. I don't count it as a royal fantasy, even if it's set in like those times. Anyways, let's get back on track. Yeah, the plot is mediocre. Nothing special about it. So fucking boring, man. And they're all literally the same. Like, if you're gonna have like a million of these stories, at least make it a bit different. Don't just copy and paste the plot with different character designs, man. Same with the characters. So fucking boring and forgettable. All of these characters usually have one personality trait, or they have no personality at all. And don't even get me started on the protagonist is the center of the world syndrome. Like, yes, I know this is a problem in like pretty much most media, but I still don't like it. I definitely prefer something like World Trigger, where the main character is just a small part of the world. But oh my days, these royal fantasies, man. Everything is about the protagonist. Literally everything. God forbid the protagonist dies in one of these stories. The entire solar system would get sucked up by a black hole. But out of all these mediocre and boring protagonists, there's one that actually stood out. But not for a good reason. She is the biggest piece of shite I've seen in one of these stories. Okay, let me introduce you to this fucking piece of cunt, Helga from Revenge on the Real One. Alright, so this is the synopsis of the story, right?
Ever since Helga Utrick found out she was switched at birth with her half-sister, she has tried her best to shake off the stigma of being a fake by building up her reputation as the perfect daughter of the House Utrick. Helga's efforts all go to waste though when her half-sister Hillian is discovered.
Okay, that's enough. I can't be asked to read that shite, man. So basically, right, Helga gets treated like shit by her family, especially her stepmom, because she's like the fake daughter or some nonsense like that. So what does she do? She goes after her sister, who she just met, by the way. Like, why? She didn't even do anything. Helga's literally getting quote unquote revenge on the wrong person. I put it in quotes because her revenge is basically harassment towards her sister. Anyways, instead of going after the people that actually treated her like shit, she kept harassing Hillian, who, by the way, was genuinely nice to her throughout the entire story. And the worst part was, the story acted like Helga was in the right. Like, what the fuck, man? At this point, you can't even blame it on the main character's personality. This is just pure garbage writing. Like, people harass creators of big names like Attack on Titan or Jujutsu Kaisen or whatever. But this author actually deserves to be harassed because this is nonsense. The author must be sick in the head. I've never been so pissed off reading a story, man. And if you've watched my other videos, you should know how easy it is to piss me off. But there's absolutely no excuse for such trash writing. Even my baby niece can write better than that. I've said this before, but some of these have really good art styles. But it's more common that the art style is so generic, man. Like, all they're trying to do is make all the characters look pretty or handsome. Even the fucking peasants, which doesn't make sense, by the way. Like, it's just so boring to look at. And the thing is, they actually have the potential to have great and unique character designs. But nope. Here's your generic fucking princess or prince or whatever. Okay, I just want to go back to the plot again. These shitty royal fantasies usually only have 2 sections of a story. And they are the revenge section and the romance section. And let me tell you, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of this combination. Like, what kind of fucked up combination is that? I mean, there are some stories that do manage to get this combination right. But in general, nope. Okay, so there's several reasons why I don't like this revenge aspect of these stories. But before that, I have to make it clear that this is what usually happens in royal fantasies. So basically, the main character gets treated like shit by her family, gets cheated on by her ex-husband and all that shite, right? And then for some stupid reason, with no evidence whatsoever, she gets executed for something she most likely didn't even do. And while she's being executed, she starts cursing the whole world. And then of course, she regresses back in time. So the first reason why I don't like the revenge is that the main character actually never faces any consequences. Remember when I said that the world revolves around the main character in these stories? This is the biggest reason why. Like, I get it, these stories are meant to be like self-insert bullshit, but come on, man. The second reason is that whole regression thing, man. More specifically, it's the fact that she starts going ham on them before they actually treat her like shit. So it might look like revenge for us, the readers, and the main character. But for everyone else in the story, it just looks like she's harassing everyone. That's why, when you make revenge stories, please just don't use regression bullshit, man. Okay, so when the main character regresses back, the first thing she usually does is leave her cheating ex-husband, right? And then she marries someone else in like 2 seconds. But anyways, the romance is fucking shit, and here's some reasons why. So the first reason is that because the character writing is just so shite, it makes the romance look so fucking forced, man. Like, I have no investment in the characters, so I just don't give a shit. And the second reason is when they mix together the revenge and the romance aspects together. So what I mean by that is that the new husband gets involved with the revenge as well. Like, why? Firstly, they haven't even done anything yet. And secondly, the new husband literally has nothing to do with those people most of the time. What does he need revenge for? Okay, so before I get into the next section of the video, I know that my visuals were very fucking lazy this video, but not to worry. The next section of the video, I'll try and do better, man. Anyways, let's move on. So, despite all the doom and gloom in the royal fantasy genre, there is one, just one, that stands out a lot. And no, I'm not talking about Pandora Hearts, which is fucking amazing, but I don't count it as a royal fantasy, even if it's set in that time. So let me introduce you guys to this not that well known manga, and it is Holy Grail of Eris. And I'm gonna tell you why this is so good as a royal fantasy and how it uses the royal fantasy tropes to make something that's fucking unique, if I say so myself. I'm gonna say this right now, but I've never read something like this before. Not off to a great start, but the art style is pretty standard. It's not anything special. But there are some fucking amazing panels. And the art style goes on to my next point. The character designs are also quite standard and nothing special. However, the main selling point is that you can distinguish between the characters, which is something that manga relies a lot on hairstyles and clothing instead of the actual face structures and all that shite. Like in this, you can mostly tell who's who just by looking at their face. Like most royal fantasies, the plot starts off as a simple revenge story, right? You have the main character, Connie, who's from a very honest family, right? And when she's like bare young, she witnesses someone called Scarlet getting executed. And like usual royal fantasies, their execution is done mainly because of false accusations. But this is where it actually starts getting interesting. I think it was like 10 years later, Connie gets haunted by Scarlet's ghost, right? And this is technically where the revenge starts. And instead of girl bossing her way through, it's actually fucking interesting. So what happens now is that Connie and Scarlet work together to find out the reason for her execution and who drove her to that point. And from here on out, there is a major genre shift. Like it shifts from a shitty self-insert royal fantasy to a fucking thriller mystery. Like the conspiracy ends up going so deep, man. This shit is nearly on par with Urasawa's work, who made stuff like Monster and 20th Century Boys. So in my opinion, the pacing has to match the plot of the story, right? So what I mean by that is that there's no such thing as too fast or too slow pacing as long as it matches the story. So things like Dandadan benefit from a really fast pace, and it's the opposite for stories like Monster, which need a slow pace. And Holy Grail of Eris, being a thriller mystery, is very slow paced, which is fucking perfect for it. Alright, let's talk about the characters for a bit. So we have the main character Connie, who's your typical timid but honest girl, right? Which can be annoying, but she's not like Deku or Tanjiro, who give you like a full lecture on like morals and shit and what's right and wrong or not. Like anytime those types of characters come onto my screen, I just want to shoot the computer, man. But Connie's different. Then we have the other main character, Ghost Scarlet, right? And she's a very fun character. Like she's a sassy genius with photographic memory. And I really like how Connie is one of the only people that can actually see her, because she's a ghost, right? And it's letting their friendship develop bare nicely. Like from what I understand, Scarlet gets Connie out of like sticky situations, while Connie gives Scarlet emotional support. For example, whenever she gets fucking pissed off. But the thing I like most about Scarlet is her unwavering confidence. Remember when she got executed, she was smiling. Like that automatically made her a beast of a character. And the other characters are no joke as well, man. Like you get introduced to characters and you're like, oh, they're not that important, innit? But then a few chapters later, they become bare important. And I think that's quite nice because they're making full use of all their characters instead of like writing filler characters like most other manga do. It's definitely not like Naruto, where all the side characters get shafted to oblivion. Oh, and one more thing. When do you ever see a dead character who's been dead from the beginning be so fucking interesting, man. And I'm not talking about Scarlet, right? She's technically dead, but she isn't Bakersley. I'm talking about there's one other character called Lily, who's very important to the conspiracy. And I love how Scarlet's execution basically makes their, what's the place called, like Empire or something, lose two of their greatest geniuses. I mean, like, greatest up and coming talents. One of them being Scarlet herself, obviously, with her photographic memory and shit. And the other being Lily, who I'm not gonna spoil anything about, but I'm just gonna let you know that this execution basically got rid of two people that could have done bits for the Empire, man. I mean, the manga is just very consistent so far, right? Like, it makes sense in the context of the world. There's enough character deaths to show that the conspiracy is actually dangerous. And the character writing is just fucking fantastic, man. For example, Connie's development isn't like bare sudden like loads of other manga. It's quite gradual. In conclusion, I don't like royal fantasy except Holy Grail of Eris. Anyways, that's it. Peace.